Now, in the midst of all this, I mentioned that Netanyahu went to the General Assembly today to address it, and it was powerful. Half the place walked out. The American delegation stayed, however, but half of the UN General Assembly delegation was not in the building.
Home to over 6 million Jews, he pledged, quote, "There will be no Israel in 25 years," end quote.
And it's really amazing. Netanyahu is a courageous and brave guy. He said what he said, and he just stared at the Star Wars cantina scene in front of him, which is what the audience at the UN is.
70 years after the murder of 6 million Jews, Iran's rulers promised to destroy my country, murder my people.
And there was a moment in his speech, his theme was that they were not going to sit in silence any longer when genocidal or wild genocidal regimes nuke up. It was a direct statement at Iran. And in the midst of the U.S. and the P5+1 nations deal with Iran that guarantees them a nuke at some point down the line, could be next month, could be 10 years. It's widely unknown, but it's feared that it's sooner than later. Netanyahu said, we're not going to sit silent, and we're not going to allow it to happen. And at one point in his speech, he stood there and said nothing for 44 seconds. Do you know how uncomfortable that makes people?
And the response from this body, the response from nearly every one of the governments represented here, has been absolutely nothing. Utter silence. Deafening silence. Perhaps you can now understand why Israel is not joining you in celebrating this deal. If Iran's rulers were working to destroy your countries, perhaps you'd be less enthusiastic about the deal. If Iran's terror proxies were firing thousands of rockets at your cities, perhaps you'd be more measured in your praise. And if this deal were unleashing a nuclear arms race in your neighborhood, perhaps you'd be more reluctant to celebrate.
You know, sometimes a mistake happens here at the EIB network. A computer doesn't fire off an element of sound, or microphone switch doesn't work, and it ends up that there is silence here. And we, highly trained broadcast specialists, refer to that as dead air. And I have never been afraid of dead air. I think dead air is one of the biggest attention getters in the world. 5 seconds of dead air never hurt anybody. Have you ever seen what happens if you're watching television and something happens to a picture and it goes black? What happens? Everybody straightens up. Everybody focuses their attention on the screen and waits for it to get fixed. Everybody, even people only casually watching, will have their attention riveted. Well, I, again, highly trained broadcast specialist, strategically use dead air. I don't get to use it as much as I used to. You know why? because some of our affiliate stations have computers that are essentially running commercials and what other sound elements there are during commercial breaks, and they are programmed to fire up anything if there's more than 2 seconds of silence, because it is assumed that something's wrong. Now, when I do dead air, I like to do 5 full seconds of it. But 3 will do. 3 seconds will do. 5 seconds is optimum. See what I mean? Oh, Netanyahu did 44 seconds of this while staring at these people. He was not, no, that's what I mean. He was glaring at him. He was staring at him. He was not smiling. And it makes you fidgety. It makes you nervous because you know that he is speaking right to you when he's not saying a word, when he's just described something that's unacceptable and stops and stares at you. It can be as effective as any words that you utter. Now, naturally, we can't play the 44 seconds of silence here. But that's why I spent some time here to describe it. Let's go to the Netanyahu sound bites.
It's not easy to oppose something that is embraced by the greatest powers in the world. Believe me, it would be far easier to remain silent. But throughout our history, the Jewish people have learned the heavy price of silence. And as the Prime Minister of the Jewish state, as someone who knows that history, I refuse to be silent.
We edited the applause, but it went on. I was kind of surprised by how much applause there was. Netanyahu's hated at this place. He's literally despised at this place. Now, half of the people that despise him were not there. They boycotted and didn't show up. But I think it goes to tell you something, that Israel, Netanyahu, our number one ally in that region, is despised and hated. And yet, Iranian speakers can get up, or Hugo Chavez, when he was alive, get up, standing ovations, raucous standing ovations, because the United Nations is a joke of an organization and has been for a long time. It's aimed at fleecing the U.S. is essentially its purpose now. And here's the final bite we have from Netanyahu, where he says they're not going to allow Iran to get nukes, no matter what anybody else is doing or saying.
Not being passive means speaking up about those dangers. We have, we are, we will. Not being passive also means defending ourselves against those dangers. We have, we are, and we will. Israel will not allow Iran to break in, to sneak in, or to walk into the nuclear weapons club. I know that preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons remains the official policy of the international community.
It's a crock.
But no one should question Israel's determination to defend itself against those who seek our destruction.
See, this is why people have problems. What he said here is exactly right. I know that preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons remains the official policy of the international community. It may well represent the policy, but it's not the reality. Everybody knows that's paying attention here what has happened. People are running around saying, we just did a deal. I'm the first president in American history, world history, to ever stop the bad guys from getting a nuke. I, Barack Hussein Obama. When the fact of the matter is, in order to get them to sign anything, he had to promise and assure that they will get a nuke down the road. And yet everybody runs around and applauds the deal. First president ever to stop nuclear proliferation. Just the exact opposite. And this is why people have developed such a distrust and an animus toward politics, because it insults people's intelligence. And it furthermore becomes clear that the ultimate aim of politics for many is personal glory, personal achievement, personal accolades, which is fine and dandy, except that's not what politics professes to be about. Quick timeout, my friends. We'll be back with more after this.